Welcome to another episode of Just Scrapping By, the YouTube channel where we find value in some of the most commonly thrown away electronics. In today's episode, we will be scrapping a flat-screen television manufactured by Panasonic to see what valuable components can be found within. The model of the television is a TC-P50S1. It took us about an hour and a half to disassemble and another 3 hours to depopulate the circuit boards. So let's get into the project. Flipping the television onto its screen, the first step is to remove the 10 screws holding the back cover onto the frame. We also need to remove screws that secure the stand to the device, as well as all of the screws holding the various ports on the back panel. Once the back panel has been removed, we can see the main power board as well as the 2 picture boards that send data to the screen. We can also see an inline power filter and 2 small fans. Something important to note when taking apart this type of television is the large electrolytic capacitors on the power board. These capacitors, when charged, can pack a wallop of voltage, so make sure they are discharged before touching them. We removed over 40 electrolytic capacitors from all of the circuit boards. Although some capacitors are cheap, you will notice that capacitors with a higher voltage rating are actually very valuable. With over $80 in electrolytic capacitors alone, we are already off to a great start with this salvage project. We've said it before and we'll say it again, ceramic capacitors are very cheap. These 5 capacitors are worth less than 50 cents, but we still consider them as components we can use for another project. If you are keeping track of the salvage values we provide in the table on the screen, you will notice that polyester capacitors have some value, but do not seem like they are worth removing from a circuit board. The thing about these capacitors is that they are very easy to remove and have so many practical applications for other projects, so they are definitely worth removing from a circuit board. We removed 4 film capacitors from the Panasonic television. These components will be placed into a bulk order and will definitely have a buyer on our parts auction site. We salvaged a nice collection of inductors from this device. We salvaged 2 large 20 mH double toroidal inductors as well as an assortment of bobbin inductors. These inductors will fetch just under $20 in salvage. What's better than 1 small transformer? 4 small transformers. These transformers can either be used for other projects, sold on auction, or scrapped for the valuable metals contained within. There were 4 diodes which could be safely removed from the television. The first 2 are SARS2 diodes, which are referred to as snubber diodes. We also removed an RK3 6-shot key barrier diode, as well as an IN5046G polarized rectifier diode. We found 4 integrated circuit chips that interested us for their scrap value. The first 2 chips are MIP390 chips, which are used as switch power circuits. We also found an MIP9L02, which is another type of switch power chip. We also recovered a 458DD amplifier chip. These chips can fetch a high auction value as the value of chips increases if the production run on the chips has been retired. We pulled 5 MOSFET-type components out of the circuit boards. We removed 3 K20J60U switching regulator components as well as 1 D20XB80 general-purpose rectifier. Not only are these components useful, but they also carry a high resale value. Well, some say a picture is worth 1,000 words. We can say that 33 MOSFET components are worth over $125. We found a huge selection of MOSFET components in the Panasonic television, ranging from simple N-channel transistors and Schottky MOSFETs, right up to unique high-frequency rectification MOSFET devices. We will definitely be putting some of these up on the market for sale. Ah, the humble transistor. With this little component, we would still be living in the world of vacuum tubes. We removed 3 NPN and 2 PNP transistors from the device. We also found 1 NE-MOS transistor. Once we get enough transistors gathered, we will sell them as a bulk order to get a return on our salvage investment. We pulled 2 relays from the television. These relays have a 5-volt coil rating and only have one normally open contact within. Relays have so many uses, and we can definitely find a use, or a buyer, for these. We salvaged 4 high wattage thermal resistors with varying resistance. These resistors are used in high heat and high current applications and are far more reliable than a standard resistor, and therefore more valuable. Trimmer pot resistors are not too expensive to buy, but are very useful in electronic projects because the resistance can be adjusted within a defined range by adjusting the screw on the top of the device. We may not be able to sell these for a high price, but it is always good to keep a few spares laying around. We removed 6 single-pole micro buttons from the front of the television. These buttons require very little force to activate and have many practical uses. We may just keep these for our own projects if they do not sell. The next few images are of the various other components we salvaged from the television, but do not have enough to place in their own category. The first group is some various ports that are used to send and receive data from the television. We managed to remove 2 VGA ports, 3 USB ports, 1 HDMI port, and 2 audio jacks. We collected a large amount of aluminum heatsink material from the television. This heatsink is very expensive to buy, and we can either sell it for its metal value, or make even more money as selling it as measured lengths of heatsink material. We have 2 working speakers from the Panasonic television. Many times a television speaker will break down because it has been cranked too loud. These speakers will go onto auction as replacement parts. Without going into detailed explanation, electricity can be dirty. Sensitive electronics such as televisions require the waveform of the electricity to be balanced and clean. This is the purpose of an inline filter. It removes noise from electrical current to make sure a device runs better. With all the heatsink we found in the television, it is only natural that there needs to be some airflow to remove the hot air kept within. The Panasonic television contained 2 fans to get the hot air out of the television. People are always making interesting things with these types of fans, and we will definitely be able to find a buyer. The last few odds and ends in the television can be seen here. There is a small RF coil transformer, a surge absorber, a crystal oscillator, and some sort of thing. We have tried to search high and low as to what this component does, but have not turned out any results. If anyone knows what this component does, please drop us a comment below. We gathered all of the assorted lengths of wire from the television. We always gather all of the wire we pull out of devices and auction it off at the end of the year. Although the wire is not worth much, it is still useful for projects. We collected all of the screws from the Panasonic television. About 2/3 of the screws are meant for plastic, while the other third are machine screws. We also found 5 rubber spacers which will go in our spare parts drawer. When we compile our list of components together, we can see there was a lot of capacitors and MOSFET components. When we take the values of all of the components and add them together, we have a total salvage value of $458.49, including the $25 deduction of how much it cost for us to acquire the device. The 4.5 hours of time it took to take apart the television and depopulate the boards was approximately $71. If we were to sell all of the components from the television, we would make a $362 profit. In the worst-case scenario, if we managed to sell $115 of what we salvaged, we would break even. So the question is scrapping this device worth it? If you were to obtain the device for free, or for at least less than $300, you would make a profit. There are so many useful components in the device, and the device is easy to disassemble. But the solder on the board seems to be harder than most, which makes depopulation a little bit more challenging. The components that you can salvage out of the device are useful for either resale or other projects. For the Panasonic TC-P50S1 television, we give it a scrapping grade of A+. Thank you for watching our video, and remember to subscribe to our channel to see more great tutorials on how to turn the old into gold.